What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. That's right, the only sports podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there.
That's me.
How we doing today, Casino, on this beautiful, beautiful Tuesday?
Pretty good. Trying to figure out how to place my damn computer, considering like you made it to where it's here. So like, do I go here and I lose some of like the good light, or do I go here so it looks weird in the corner with the crease thingy? I don't know. It's been throwing me off for the last 3-4 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion was more skin. So I don't even care what you show, just as long as it's more of your body. I mean, that's what the people want to see. Yeah, that white, creamy body. But we are here today to talk, of course, about Wild Card Weekend. I will not call it Super Wild Card Weekend because I don't know why we started calling it that this year. And
it's because it went the extra day.
Yeah, just apparently just rescheduling one game and making a Monday night game makes it super, but we're talking about super and regular wild card. If you go to our YouTube channel, YouTube
I gotta check it out. I gotta check it out still.
I didn't even plan for this. Last night after the game, I was so I had so much to say about that Eagles Buccaneers games.
Oh,
yeah. Obviously, because I'm an Eagles fan. So I did 31 minutes on the dot about just everything Eagles related, that game, the season, just a recap of basically my sadness. But I wasn't even really sad. I was more mad. And even today, in retrospect, I'm not so much sad as it just feels like a missed opportunity. But we will... So go check out that game. Obviously, me and Casino will talk about that game when we get to it. But we're going to go in order. And before we do that, Casino, our picks, your Packers-Cowboy pick was the difference in winning the week or losing the week, because we had every...
That doesn't mean we did good in the picks, though.
Oh, no. We did absolutely awful. So for you had 3 correct picks. Obviously, the only one different being Cowboys Packers, which means I had 2. So I think, you know what, before we get to that game, let's talk about, I think, what was one of the least interesting games, and also one I think in retrospect, we were fools to both pick the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
So the Dolphins lose 7-26 in Kansas City.
They didn't have Waddle. They had a whole bunch of people out, and I don't know. I was just trying to be hopeful because I'm over the Chiefs.
Yeah. Patrick Mahomes, 23 for 41, 262, 1 touchdown. Pacheco, 24 carries, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Rashid Rice emerging as the number 1 wide receiver in KC.
Good for him, though, because he started to like the last few weeks, and I'm like, all right, they finally got somebody that's like, oh, I guess I could catch the football.
Yeah, well, and that entire offense now runs through Rashid Rice and Travis Kelce, evident by the targets.
I would say Rashid over Kelce.
Well, Rashid Rice was targeted 12 times. Kelce was targeted 10, and the next closest person was Mecole Hardman, who was targeted 3 times, only caught 1 reception for 3 yards. So basically, Mahomes threw the ball 41 times. 22 of those times were either to Rice or Kelce, which is kind of how it used to be Tyreek Hill and Kelce. This is kind of always how this Chief offense has just run their offense, right? Which is just get Patrick Mahomes time to find 1 or 2 targets.
Get Patrick Mahomes time, or let the refs give Patrick Mahomes time. Dude, there was, again, so many missed holds, man. It's ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, we'll get to that on the Monday night game. But, I mean, the officiating, shockingly, also bad in the playoffs as it was in the regular season. But you and I were both picking Miami more out of hope than out of actually thinking they would win. If you're the Miami Dolphins, Casino, let's talk about them first. Where do you go from this with Tua Tagovailoa and this team that showed up every week unless they were playing a good team, and then they got basically boat raced?
I don't think it's Tua. I think remember, I've always been like right on the border with him. Um, but he stayed healthy. He had a decent season. I know this game wasn't that great. But you got to think of this though with Tua. He's from warm weather. He plays in warm weather, and he went up to one of the coldest games in NFL history. Like, he's not going to be 100%. Um,
Yeah.
Plus, he was missing some weapons. And I mean, that's not, I try not to give him too many excuses here. But I think for the Dolphins, it's more they need to protect, they need to give Tua a little more time, I think. And get him some people that can actually catch the ball and where am I trying to say? Like, so for the Chiefs players, like you have Kelsey, obviously he catches the ball and then he is just running through people, this and that. You need a power guy. There we go. You need a power guy. I don't think they really have it on that team. So I think the team's fine. I think they're gonna have another decent year next year as long as they stay healthy.
Yeah, I also agree that the context of this game is kind of missing when now all of a sudden the sports media landscape is now just 100% anti Tua and like he'll never win the Dolphins anything, blah blah blah.
No,
And
it's
it's just
all
like,
overreactions and it's outrageous actually.
yeah, and it's like you realize this was one of the coldest games in NFL history. And again, we talk about like, oh, well, the Chiefs played fine in it and all this kind of stuff. But it's also like, yeah, they were also the home team. And besides one home team this weekend, every home team won handily, like at their home stadium. So you're telling me if this same game was played in Miami, where the Dolphins were the home favorite, that this score would also be 26-7. I mean, maybe, but also these teams played earlier this season and it was a one score game. So credit to the Chiefs for playing what I
I
thought was
don't
a
give them
damn good
credit.
game
I don't give them credit.
in freezing conditions. But when it comes to the Dolphins, I think Tua, Mike McDaniels, Hill, obviously their rushing attack all season. I think there was, and then obviously their defense was a huge step up from what it was last year. So you have a Dolphins team
Oh
where
yeah,
all
Waddle
the
was in this
pieces are
game.
there.
Waddle
Yeah.
was in this game, but he wasn't 100%. That's what it was.
Yeah. So then you have maybe the best or one of the best offenses in the entire league. Obviously, Tua makes that go with his accuracy and his ability to get the ball out quick. So going forward, like you just be a better version of this team and you were already an 11-win team where if one or two games especially against the Bills would have been different, you were the 2 seed.
Yeah,
So I
and then
feel
you don't
like,
know how things could have shaped out then, you know?
yeah. So to just do this thing where like the media is like, we need to get Tua out of there. So you want this team to just restart with a rookie quarterback for what reason? They're not a rebuilding team. They're already built.
No,
They,
because it's back at that notion where I absolutely hate this, where most teams, they don't give you more than a year and a half, 2 years tops. Like, that's insane to me. Like, absolutely insane. It takes time to rebuild and develop a team and to find the pieces you need. Like, it's absolutely insane to me that a lot of coaches get in and get out right away. A lot of players get in, quarterbacks especially get in, get out,
yeah.
not on their own accord, and it's sickening. Like, all these owners want them to win, GMs want them to win and win now. It's like that's not how this works. You're not you're not just going to go out there and magically, like even when the Chiefs did, they got Mahomes, but it took him a little bit, not too long, but he rode a bench a little bit. Like, it's not gonna all of a sudden just click. It's
Yeah.
not gonna do that. Like, you have to build. You have to build. And a great example of that, and we're gonna get to it, is Green Bay. You have to build. Like, it's insane.
Uh let's talk about the Chiefs now, Casino.
Ah,
The only thing standing in their way from yet another trip to the Super Bowl is the Buffalo Bills next week, and then either the Baltimore Ravens or the Texans, the in the AFC
I
Championship
don't
game
think
now.
they beat any of those teams.
Really? So you're picking them to lose next week against the
I would
Bills?
pick them to lose against the Bills. I'd pick them lose against the Texans, and I pick them lose against the Ravens. I
Interesting.
can't see I can't see this team going out there and beating those 3 teams.
Well, I think next week, and then obviously on next show, we'll talk about the upcoming matchups more than we are right now. But to touch on the upcoming games, I mean, Buffalo's entire legacy for the past, well, pretty much for the Josh Allen era has basically been boiled down to Bills versus Chiefs. And then, the 20s, what was it, 7 seconds at the end of that game, they should have
Yeah.
won, that they ended up losing, and then the rules got changed, blah, 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 blah. So Josh Allen right now and this Bills team, Sean McDermott, everybody on this Bills staff is defined by that moment, right? So that's why whenever the Bills and Chiefs play, it's always in Kansas City. It's always a big deal. And when you look at, I saw one of the graphics on one of the various sports shows on TV, but it was these guys when they play each other are basically identical and they have the same record. I believe they're each 3-3. So this is the perfect, it's in Buffalo. So now you're the home team. You have Kansas City, a team you've already beat coming into your house. And then this is basically to beat the tiebreaker where all of a sudden, you're going into an AFC championship game where you're playing either an overachieving Texans team or a Ravens team that until we see them this week has never done anything in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson. So
Mhm.
this feels like the best shot besides that 27-second game the Bills have ever had, which is a team you've already beat and then 2 unknowns who are overachieving and then a team we've never seen do anything in the playoffs. So if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you have to be like, the Chiefs are the last
You get another home game. Like, that's
Yes.
just right there is great. They have to go through you now. The Chiefs have to go
Yes.
through you. It's not an Arrowhead. It's not an Arrowhead. It is in Buffalo. Good fucking luck. And
But let's
I want to see a snowball hit Travis Kelce in the face so bad. You have no
the
idea.
the Chiefs hate is palpable, but I agree with you. I just want, dude, and we'll get to this when we talk about next week's games with the 49ers and all that stuff. Just please, like, looking at the teams left, let it be any combination of 2 teams besides the Chiefs and the 49ers.
Dude,
Everything else would just be a shot in the
if
arm,
it's the
just
Chiefs
fresh
and the
blood.
Niners, I doubt I'll watch that game.
Oh my God. Like,
I
I
mean,
just don't want to see it.
there would be literally one person that I would be rooting for in both of those teams, and that would be Purdy, just because everybody gives him shit, and I think he's a damn good quarterback.
Yeah. But let's segue casino
Oh
to
god,
the
I love
new
the Segu. It's so good.
to the
I'm gonna
other,
we seriously need to make a dish and eat it on this podcast, and we'll just call it Segu. I don't care. The
or we
Segu.
need that could be our first t-shirt for the Only Sports Podcast, Segu.
Segu.
But let's
Let's do
talk
it.
about the
I know a
other
t-shirt guy.
Saturday.
I know a couple t-shirts guys. I can
Hey.
get that done.
Let's talk about the other Saturday game casino, and that is, of course, the Cleveland Browns losing
Ah,
45-14
okay.
against the 10-7
Let
Houston
me just start
Texans.
here. So we
Oof.
both picked the Browns, but we both said we wouldn't be shocked if Texans could upset this game.
Yes.
I didn't expect it to be a blowout. I
No.
did not expect it to be this big of an ass kicking. I'm all for it. CJ Stroud was fucking amazing. Flacco, there's a reason why you're done. But dude, I am so impressed with CJ Stroud. And he didn't even throw that much, but he protected the football. The team played very well as he directed the team. And absolutely phenomenal.
Well, also when you as the Texans are gifted back-to-back pick sixes. Like, I
Dude.
mean, you can look at NFL history. There has never been a game where the opposing quarterback has gifted you 2 pick sixes and you have lost. I didn't look that up. I don't have that pulled up. I would guarantee that has never happened where a team has thrown 2 pick sixes and still won that game. But
Right.
really,
I
the
d
story of this game was how this Browns defense, so many stats, so many analysts, so many
crumbled.
everything, just saying this is one of the best defenses in NFL history. And then all of a sudden, they meet a rookie quarterback, which I feel like is like being underreported on, that this is a rookie quarterback
Yeah,
on a team that picked third
first year
last
in the
year.
NFL. Yeah,
Yeah.
first year. Like, it's
S
not even like a Love situation where he had time to develop. Like, he's fresh to the NFL. This is like a
and
freshman quarterback in college winning the national title.
yeah. And also, like, their weapons. It's not like, like we just talked about a Patrick Mahomes. It's not like where this was an already built team and then you slide a rookie quarterback into it. Their only known weapon going into this season was Dalton Schultz. That's it. And then they had their running back, Damian Pierce, who in this game had 3 carries for 0 yards. Schultz had 1 reception for 37 yards and a touchdown. Like, everybody else was an unknown, a midseason pickup. They got Singletary, and now, like, in the middle of the season, or I believe he was already on the team or something, but he is now their lead back. But really, the story is CJ Stroud,
All
16 for
day.
21, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns.
That's only on 16 completions to get 274
I
yards.
know. And
It's
I
bombs,
think
dude.
the craziest thing about this, obviously no turnovers, no fumbles, no interceptions, no anything, no sacks. This
Yeah,
Browns
that was
team,
impressive.
what is it? Allowed 0 sacks. It never felt like CJ Stroud was even hurried. Like, he literally just stood in the pocket and just dealt. Like,
Dude,
that was the
and
most impressive thing
we
to me.
talked about it on that one bomb of a throw. He just flicked his wrist. Just flicked it.
Yeah.
He just flicked his wrist. Like, he didn't throw his hips into it. He didn't turn his body. He was just like, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes who throwing a football out of the stadium? Who? What? Nah, here you go. Here's 90 yards down the damn field or whatever it was, like I don't remember. It was like 65, 70 yards or whatever it was. It was like in
Yeah.
the air. It was insane.
It was so fast that the cameraman almost, like,
Oh
missed
my,
it. Like, it
yeah.
was just like, you just saw,
Well,
like, the
because he didn't
ball.
know where the ball like,
Yeah.
the cameraman was literally just like, "Where's the ball?" And, like, it was so fast, it has so much hang time up there that he was confused. He was like, "There's no way the ball made it that far."
Yeah. And then obviously,
It was awesome.
Joe Flacco, great story this season. But we knew going into this game, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned it, that he is going to be a quarterback who's going to turn the ball over. And
Mhm.
you're hoping that either your defense is good enough or Flacco for the rest of the game is good enough to win the game. But his 2 pick sixes were really the 2 scores that obviously broke this game wide open. And then the Browns were never able to mount a comeback. Also, Flacco gets sacked twice. The Texans were, I mean, that crowd was electric. They were
Oh, dude,
fired
they're
up.
excited.
Like,
They gotta host a playoff game, man. After
yeah.
the year before being the second worst team in the league. They could have been the first if they didn't win that stupid game at the end of the year when you and I both were like, "Why? Well,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you doing? You could have had the number 1," which, is wild because if they did, do you think they would have picked CJ Stroud or Bryce Young? I think
Uh
about that constantly.
yeah, I mean that's true, but just the cards as they fell, the Texans are going to Baltimore next week, where
I
I
think
think
Baltimore better watch out.
they have a real shot to win. I mean, if again, the Browns were the number 1 defense and just got carved up for, you take away the 2 pick sixes, CJ Stroud was still untouched and had 3 touchdowns with a perfect passer rating in the game, or an almost perfect passer rating.
Almost
I
perfect
believe
passer rating.
I sent you the one where it was
Him and Love,
yes, him and Love, if I'll pull that up right now.
which is
Eerily
great.
similar. They ended up
Eerily, it was
both,
2 fucking yards were different.
yeah, 2 yards difference, but both of them ended with a passer rating of 157.2. I believe the perfect
Insane.
one is 158 point something. So, yeah, literally a couple percentage points against a for a perfect passer rating again against the number one defense in the league, which I think is for a rookie is maybe one of the most impressive feats we've ever seen,
Yeah.
which you have to feel bad. And we're going to talk about them in a second, but you have to feel bad for Puka Nakua, who is having like one of the best, if not the best rookie
Uh,
wide receiving
no,
uh
it is. Like
rookie
it's in the
season ever.
books. Like I mean, but you're gonna go off of regular season, which is gonna be very close regardless. But watching both of them play because Puka is insane. But regular season, he had the most receptions by a rookie, and then the most yards by a rookie, and then he just broke another one. He broke a DK Metcalf record for the playoffs as well. I think it was
Yeah.
most yards in a single game. He had like 186 yards or something like that.
He had 9 receptions, 181 yards, and one
80.
touchdown.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that's insane. And so that beat DK Metcalf's rookie playoff performance as well. Kid's great.
which the only way you can feel bad for him after having such a great season is all that's going to be overshadowed because CJ Stroud is going to win offensive rookie of the year and be the rookie everybody's talking about, even though what Puka Nakua did is nothing short of like you just said, like the best, not of the past couple years, the best ever,
In
ever.
NFL history for
Like,
rookie wide receiver, yeah.
also,
Broke
I
2 different
found out
records and then beat a record in the playoffs.
our my wife's friend George, he was at our
Mhm,
wedding.
mhm.
Went to school with this guy and his brothers. So he like knows this whole family and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he was telling me stories about them and stuff. So shout out to George. But let's talk about that game, Casino. Let's do the Sunday night game and then the Sunday day game, just like we did the Saturday games.
Yeah,
The
that's
Detroit
fair.
Lions in at
Whew, what a
home.
game. It was everything that I wanted. It was
Uh
everything that I wanted in a playoff game, dude.
They win 24-23
Wow.
in Detroit. That place was rocking. There were people crying in the stands. Everybody's freaking
Dude, I
out.
was getting emotion like, I wasn't emotional, like, during the game or anything, but, like, afterwards, and then they just kept panning to all these fans in the crowd, just, like, absolute bawling, like, grown men and women just,
Yeah.
"Yeah." I'm like,
Which, you know what?
"Oof."
I That's why I related to these fans and I never relate to the Dallas or 49ers fans where they show them in the stands and they're crying after losses. I've never cried after a football loss. The only time I've ever cried at a football game was a football win.
Fuck
So
off.
I get crying at wins because you're so happy. If you cry at losses, you're a bitch. I'm just gonna say that now. Like that's how I've always felt. But for the Rams and the Lions, let's talk about the Lions first, Casino. Jared Goff, 22 for 27, 277, one touchdown. Montgomery and Gibbs both had rushing touchdowns. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, 7 receptions,
Oh my
110
god.
yards. Only
If I was
touch.
Go
No,
for
go
it.
ahead.
So what were you gonna say?
I was going to say only touchdown coming from Sam Laporta, who was a game time decision after being injured last week. He was in, not featured as much as he usually is, but he did catch the one touchdown. So, thoughts on this Lions team, Casino, before we talk about the Rams?
Uh, their offense is legit. I mean, 22 for 27 is absolutely stellar. Fan fucking tastic. Jared Goff, he wanted to win this game so bad. But I did love that reception to Laporta. That was, you have a previous Rams player and a previous Rams player scoring against them. Like, that made me so happy. It was a big fuck you to the Rams organization. Oh, that the game couldn't have started off any better for that. Was with those two scoring together, hooking up. Um, but I do want to say, how in the fuck? And I don't normally give a shit about snubs for Pro Bowls and this and that, or um the and All Star games or whatever for whatever game leagues. But how did Saint Brown not get on that fucking Pro Bowl team? I don't understand it.
Uh,
I
uh, Again, I don't know. And it's
Dude,
plus
well, did you see the one where, like, he gets the ball and like the guy tries to tackle him. And he just like throws him. He pulled like a Gronkowski move, put his head down, threw him off, broke the next tackle. And I'm like, he's angry. This guy is fucking angry right now, dude.
He had
Oh,
1,515 yards, 10 touchdowns, 119 receptions. Every year he has gotten more receptions, more yards, and then more
dude, I don't
touchdowns.
know how Amon-Ra St. Brown did not like that. This snub after watching even this game, I'm like, just how? Just how? Like, what
Yeah.
was what? I just don't get it. I don't get it. I love this Rams team. Jared Goff was passing the ball to everybody. I loved it. I can't get enough of how well this Rams team played.
Well,
It
now
looks
your Super Bowl pick, Casino, with the
I'm loving it. I
opponents
love
in
it.
front of them being next week, they're playing the Bucs, and then it's either the Packers or 49ers. How confident are you that the Lions will reach the Super Bowl?
I'm up to like a good, and this is being, realistic. I'm probably a good 36%.
Ooh, wow. Okay. That
Yeah. No,
is,
I mean, because I know Tampa just won and they were looking good, but I mean, they played the Eagles, which we'll talk about that game. I know
and I
you
already
already
did
did.
rant about for 30
Yeah.
minutes.
So we won't touch on it too much, but it's still the Bucks. They're not playing at home. They have to go into Detroit. Detroit's not going to be like, okay, this is the Bucks are playing good. We'll watch out for them, but I don't think the Bucks can stop this offense at all. Even if the Detroit mediocre defense, less than score a few. There's no. I just can't see Jared Goff being outplayed by Baker Mayfield, even though Baker's having a great year and a great postseason already. I just can't. I couldn't see it. I won't be able to see it.
Well, the
Um,
pathway, as we just mentioned, is Bucks this weekend, which they already played on October 15th. The Lions won 20-6. And then if the Packers pull another upset and beat the 49ers, the Lions have
then
beat the Packers twice this, or no, the Packers beat them once, 22
once.
to 19 in
Mhm.
November. And then the Lions beat the Packers in September. So it would be the rubber match. They have not played the 49ers this season. So, but again, what needs to be mentioned is if the Packers pull off the upset and beat the 49ers, that means the Packers would have to go to Detroit,
I would
right?
love it.
And play an NFC championship in that kind of atmosphere. I think,
Oh,
again,
I literally just got chills. Like, could you
yeah,
imagine? Oh wow, dude, yeah. Could you imagine the Packers who are having a great time and they just knocked off the Cowboys, great game, going into Detroit and just that place might erupt. Like that would be insane. I'm rooting for that. Obviously, because I don't want the Niners in, but how great would that be? Packers, Detroit, two teams that people were like,
yeah,
Jordan Love, he kind of sucks. I mean, and then everybody's like, the Lions, they got to prove it to me. Well, I'm all
yeah.
for it. That would
I
be
mean,
so great.
this point has been made a million times by the time people listen to this podcast, but it's still crazy enough that we have to reiterate it. The four quarterbacks who are about to have a chance to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC are Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, what is it? Jordan Love and Brock Purdy.
Dude,
Like, if you would have
that's
had
so
those
good.
4
That's so
NFC
good.
quarterbacks as the 4 options to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl at
uh,
the beginning of the season, if you would have bet that, if there was a bet to do that, you
to
could have
get to
bet,
hit all four of those, yes.
yeah, you could have bet $10 to win $1,000,000
Well, I mean,
because
here's
there'd
the
be
thing.
no shot.
I mean, two of them are realistic. You have the Niners with Purdy. We know how that story goes. He got hurt last season in the playoffs right at the beginning, so we didn't really get to see what he could do. But we know that he could get them there, and he did. And then
Yeah.
Goff, we know he's a good quarterback. He's reached a Super Bowl before, so you have two right there. But picking Love and Mayfield,
Well, because remember, at the beginning of the preseason, there was a real conversation. Is it going to be Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield in Tampa
right?
Bay? Like, that was a real discussion. And with
They,
Love, it was, will this guy even make it to mid-season before they try other options? Like, is this guy even the guy?
yeah.
So to pick those
Oh
two, I
man.
feel like that's
So
why the odds would have been
anyway, so to
crazy.
go back to this game. We'll go back to this game. We'll move over to the Rams side. Stafford, he didn't have a horrible game. He played pretty all right, man.
Did
Uh,
you see the video where he got knocked to the ground and everybody was saying he had a concussion, and then that's
mhm.
why he did the NFL player thing where he stood up and was grabbing his ribs because he knew if he grabbed his head, they would keep him out the rest of the game?
I mean, it makes sense. But if he really had a concussion, do you think he would have been cognitive enough to, you know what I'm trying to say, that fucking word,
Yes,
uh,
but there
to
is a
grab his
close-up
ribs?
camera of him laying on the ground, and you can see, the dazed look in his eye, and then I feel like there was enough time between that to him standing up to be like, "I don't wanna get out of the game." I think it was more instinct than anything, especially for a guy like Stafford who's had his bell rung many times and has had, been kind of injury prone throughout his season, but regardless, still finished 25 for 36, 365, 2 touchdowns. I thought he had an absolutely fantastic game.
Oh, yeah,
Like,
no, he these 2 quarterbacks wanted to win this game more than anything. I fucking
yeah,
loved it. I loved it. It was everything I expected in this game, everything I was pushing for in this game. By the way, remember how I wanted the NFC to play out, like, going into wild card weekend, and it played out that way?
yes.
I'm very fucking happy. I'm so happy, how this worked out, and, last couple of touches on this game, so, yeah, Puka Nacua, can't talk enough about him, 9 receptions, 181 yards, touchdown, brilliant. Cooper Cup, though, I mean, 5 receptions, 27 yards, he's, you know, okay. Cooper Cup from last year, what? This year, what? Um, and then I don't remember which player it was, but, for the Rams, but the dude's leg almost getting snapped off.
The what?
The tackle that, like, hit the dude's leg and it, like, bent and almost snapped off
Oh,
looking.
I believe it was Higbee, wasn't it?
I
The
think it may have been
Rams tight end.
Tyler Higbee. Dude. Ooh, that
Again,
was one of the
that
most painful looking that was one of the most painful looking hits I've seen in a good while.
And I can't remember who said it, but a football player online went like viral for being like, this is basically what happens when you try to dictate the small area on a football player the defensive player is allowed to tackle. Because you go too high, it's a penalty, and you probably get ejected from the game, right? If you go low, it's a legal tackle, but it's more detrimental to the player you're
Yeah.
tackling because again, you're
Um
getting tackled at the knees.
I was listening to sports radio, and I don't remember who it was, or who said it to them. But the guy basically was like, I've asked a ton of people, wide receivers, tight ends, everything. Which play would you rather have outlawed in the game? Uh, the high hit towards the head, the shoulder area, or the legs? And every single player said legs. They will
Yep.
take the gamble of getting hit high. They don't want their legs snapped in half.
Yeah, exactly. But for the
Whew.
Rams, it'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason with Stafford and kind of trying to rebuild this defense, especially with, you know, not having draft picks and cap and all that kind of and working around that. So that'll be an interesting team. Let's briefly, because I don't really think there's anything to talk about with this game, Casino. Let's briefly jump to Monday and we'll talk about the Bills, Steelers, kind of what everybody expected. It was a little bit closer in the middle than I thought it would be, but still, it ends up being 31-17, Bills over Steelers. Uh, yeah, Mason Rudolph, not a bad game, especially for going into Buffalo where the game was postponed because of snowfall and because of a travel ban and all that kind of stuff. Mason Rudolph, 22 for 39, 229, two touchdowns, one interception. But Josh Allen, 21 for 30, 203 yards, three touchdowns, also rushed for 74 yards and a touchdown. Had that great 53-yard run where just none of the Steelers even attempted to tackle him. Uh, Thoughts on this game briefly because we're running out of time and I want to get to the
Yeah.
other two. But
Um,
yeah, thoughts on
no, this
this
is
one,
kind of what
Casino.
we expected. My only concern with Bills going forward is their punter. Looked like he hurt his hamstring when he was trying to chase down the Steelers player.
Who blocked his
So
punt? Yeah.
yeah, so that worries me because you need him to be 100% going into next week. So
Well, especially when field position is probably going to matter a lot,
a
especially against the
lot.
Chiefs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's concerning. I don't know what they're gonna do with that, but besides that, the Bills. I mean, I said that we both did blowout of the week, of the weekend. So wasn't super shocked there.
No, and this was again, this is the one everybody wanted. We were kind of hesitant to be like, "Oh, I want to see Bill or Browns Ravens again," or "I want to see Browns play anybody," even though we like the Browns. But now all of a sudden you look at the divisional round and it's Chiefs Bills in in Buffalo, which everybody wants to see. And then it's all of a sudden the most fun team to watch in the playoffs, the Texans going
Texans,
to Baltimore to
the
play the
team that's
Ravens.
expected to win the whole Super Bowl.
Yeah, and now that's a
Looks great.
great on the AFC. Now on the NFC, let's go back to the Sunday morning game. The shock of the week, Casino. Not that the Packers won, but in the way that they won. The Packers win 48-32 in Dallas, the only game where the home team lost, which just warms my little hateful heart. This is Jordan Love. I mean, we just talked about it. Almost a perfect pass rating. 16 of 21, 272, 3 touchdowns. Aaron Jones, 21 carries, 118 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Romeo Dobbs, 6 receptions, 151 yards, 1 touchdown.
They couldn't stop
Packers
him.
put up
They could not stop Dobbs.
Packers put up 27 points going into halftime, put up another 14 in the third quarter, and then spent almost half the game just trying to run out the clock.
Yeah.
Like they put in their
I want to
backups.
ask. So I'm glad you said that because I wanted to ask you something here. So as you said, they were blowing them out. But then, do you like the call of pulling Love, pulling Jones, in that fourth where Dallas they scored 16 points, and they made it a 2 possession game with them driving, and they got all the way down to their 30 with like 3 minutes to go. We've seen that before. I have personally with the Patriots and Falcons, where you get that quick touchdown, you get the 2-point conversion, you get a stop or onside. It could happen. Do you like the call that they did that? Or do you think they should have kept them in there and put the throttle down and just got out of there?
Well, I love the aggressiveness in the first half. I loved how aggressive they were. I love
Oh, I will get to that too. I want to ask you
yeah.
this from the get-go.
I am okay with it, even though when it was happening, obviously I wanted the Packers to win because I'm an Eagles fan. I hate the Cowboys. When it was happening, I was nervous because again, Dak Prescott, 41 for 60, 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, almost 350 of those yards were in garbage time. Like before that, I mean, I believe at halftime he had 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, and like 100 yards, right? So he's a perfect stat padding quarterback, and the literal definition of the argument that stats don't matter because his numbers are so inflated in these type of games because he's great against a prevent defense, which I feel like that's the issue I had with it. The prevent defense has never worked ever, right? It's just a tactic used to make somebody dink and dunk down the field to run out the clock. So I wish on the Packers side, I get taking your offense out because you're just trying to burn the clock and God forbid something happens to Aaron Jones or Jordan Love. And then you as the coaching staff and GM and owner are going to be asked, especially if then you lose
Right.
that game, like especially if you win that game and then you're going to the next round and one of your star players is hurt and you were winning by 3 touchdowns, like why was he still in there? So I get that. On the defensive side, why weren't you just playing the same defense you've been playing all game that was working? I don't understand the switch to, well, now we have to go to a prevent
Yeah,
defense to run out the clock on defense. That doesn't make sense.
unless you are a coach of a defensive caliber like a Belichick, where you've made a career with your defenses on the bend don't break
Yeah.
quality.
Yeah.
Like, you know how to run the clock, you know how to play it where, yes, they get 5 or 7 yards at a time, but when it matters, they're not getting anything. So I was worried about that. I even called you, and you're like, "Oh no, they're fine," and I'm like, yeah, I'm worried." And as soon as we hung up, the game was over, and I was like, "Okay." Um, but going back to what you said, and this was honestly the best part of the game for me was the very first possession. Green Bay wins the toss. They decide, yo, we're going to take the ball. We're not going to defer because Dallas has been the best first quarter scoring team, best first quarter offensive team in the league all season. They said, we're not going to give Dallas at home the ball first. Fuck you. Fuck that. We're going to go down. We're going to score and we're going to put the pressure on fucking Dallas. And they did that. That first drive, that call to take the ball and not defer was, I think, the stamp of the game. And when they went down and scored that first touchdown, I even told Brittany, my wife, I looked over, I'm like, this is over. Like, they just rattled that in, not just the players, but the fans. They rattled that stadium with a game opening touchdown.
Yeah.
Like, they
Nope. I
rattled
agree.
everybody.
And not
They
only
got
that,
in everybody's head, including the fans, which definitely fucked everybody up, dude.
yeah. And then not only that, but just the way they just
Loved it.
methodically went down the field. It was like pass, run, pass,
Last
run. And it
run,
was like a
dude.
balanced attack,
Oh my
just
god,
slowly going down the field and then kind of having their way with them. And then Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and McCarthy are having this weird energy with each other, like
oh yeah.
almost from the start. And
You
then
saw how many times did you see Dak and CD, like Dak yelling at him, CD like just turning away, and I'm like, ooh,
yeah. And
ooh,
then he throws Dak throws the pick six and trying to force CD the ball in literally triple coverage. Like that was a
dude,
terrible throw, but you could
yeah,
sense
I
it was
loved it.
all because of how weird that energy was between them. CD Lamb still had a great game, 9 receptions, 110 yards. Gallup, 6 receptions, 103 yards. Ferguson, 10 receptions, 93 yards. But again, almost all
Garbage
those
time,
numbers come in garbage time when you're already down, what, 30 or
do you
40 points to
do
20?
yeah?
Like,
Did you see the halftime show, the panel of all the coaches and all the
oh,
players?
with Jimmy Johnson going off on him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
did you see
was
Jimmy John? Oh, dude, and that came from a real place. That
yeah.
came from a real place, dude.
But again, I
Oh,
think
hey, it just made me laugh. Sorry.
do you think, Casino, with the Cowboys losing the way they did, do you think this is a team that goes after Belichick?
They would be dumb if they didn't, in my opinion.
Do you think
And
it's a realistic landing spot for Belichick? I
I
don't
don't,
think with the
I
Jerry
don't think
Jones dynamic.
no, I don't think Belichick would do it because of Jerry Jones. But I think Jerry Jones would try to tame Belichick. I think he's got the balls to try, but
True.
that's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's what I truly think is going to happen. Belichick wants to go somewhere where he has full control. It's not going to work with Jerry Jones, who wants full control. Which, speaking of that, everybody's out in Dallas. Everybody's gone.
Which is weird that you said that because as of Tuesday at 2 p.m., which is when we're recording this,
Mhm.
no Eagles coaches have been fired, no Cowboys coaches have been fired, which I feel like is weird. It's weird,
I think they're trying to
right?
move.
It's
I think
weird.
they're trying to move. Figure some money things out because, dude, there's no way both any of those coaching staff stays. Anyone,
Now,
none of them.
and then for the Packers, Casino,
Oh man, just
especially
waking up
going
too.
into Dallas and doing the way they did, everyone forgets. I bring this up constantly because obviously I'm a 49ers hater. The 49ers are a team that if you score on them first, they almost always lose the game. So for this Packers team to go down the field and score on the Cowboys in the opening drive they
They're
did,
going to do the same thing if they win the toss.
yeah, what if all of a sudden you're looking at a Packers team that's up 10-0 against a 49ers team that is a night and day difference to when they have to come back instead of when they're a front runner, right? Like, then are we seeing a repeat of this performance next week where it's all of a sudden this scrappy youngest team ever to make it to the playoffs is all of a sudden beating two of the top defenses in the league back-to-back weeks in their houses? Like, that's interesting.
No, I
But
would
as
love it.
far as Dallas, I'm sure we'll spend all offseason talking about the coaching hires and what happened here. But
Dak's gone, I think.
no, I think he's there. I don't know. We'll talk about that another time, Casino, because we have to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay winning 32-9 to end this terrible Eagles season that, frankly, as an Eagles fan, I'm just glad is over, because if I had to watch this team another week, I would drive myself fucking insane. 32-9. I already did a 31-minute rant on it that you can go listen to. So your side of what happened in this game, Casino.
Put myself on mute for a second. Yeah. I saw a team that went into the game already defeated. Like, they just seemed defeated. They didn't, at least on the defensive side. And outside of Smith making a couple of long catches, there was really nothing going good for the offense. I know Jalen had his fingers hurt, but I mean, when you throw that out the window when he makes that first long pass down to Smith, so like I threw that out the window. I don't know, man. They just gave up. I feel like this team just gave up.
And Hurts had a pretty damn good game. 25 for 35, 250 yards, 1 touchdown. He had an average time to pass of 2 seconds.
Yeah, it was not good. That line gave up. Man. By the way, my kid is belting out.
We're going to get out of here in a couple minutes, or in like 2 minutes.
Baker Mayfield, he cooked. He looked fucking awesome. I've said it all season. I love Baker in Tampa. Fucking love it. Yeah. I love it.
337 yards.
His career around.
3 touchdowns. I mean, he had and again, he had Cade Otton, their tight end, had 11 targets, but then he spread the ball around to pretty much everybody. He was cooking. He was picking apart that terrible 32nd ranked Eagles defense. Again, the Eagles have not had an answer to the blitz for the past month. So then shockingly, every team they play just blitzes the shit out of them and it completely destroys their offense. And then they did one slant pass, which got them 40 yards, which is how you beat nickel blitzes. And then all of a sudden, that one slant worked. And then they never did another slant again the rest of the game, which tells you everything you need to know about what a shit offensive coordinator Brian Johnson is. We will be back on Friday, and I pray that we have some news about some coaching changes on my team, the Eagles. I don't know if I'm fully set.
And if we're feeling antsy, we might do a quick one tomorrow. There's a lot of other sports going on in the world, and we want to start talking about it, especially with football being almost over. And there's been some great things happening in NBA. Not too much in the NHL, but definitely in the NBA. We want to get to those. So, but yeah.
And
take
then
us on
we'll
out of
also
here.
be back Friday to pick a very interesting divisional round.
I'm not going to play it safe anymore.
I know. Like, there's this season, I don't know why we keep playing it safe, because there's upsets every week where we're like, oh, we should have seen that coming. But if you want to listen to a more in-depth take of Eagles Buccaneers, I go through basically everything yesterday.
You know what? It surprised me. I was at work and you're like, I did a 30-minute cast. And I'm like, oh, okay.
You know what? I said it was going to be YouTube exclusive. This episode's short enough.
So when you asked me if I was working last night, I thought you were going to see if you were going to come down and like hang out with me. But no,
No.
it was because so you could
It
do a
was
pod.
I needed to rant. Yeah. And also in that podcast, I recorded it last night. I'm wearing the same shirt because I wore it to bed because it was right before I went to sleep. And then I just woke up and here we are. So it'll look like the only thing that changes I'm wearing a beanie. But I'll put that at the end of this podcast so you can listen to that. If not, you can go check out that video separately. And this is the end of this episode, Casino. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. We'll see you later in the week to talk about, as Casino said, NBA, NHL, and then the divisional round. So this has been the Only Sports Podcast. Adios. Obviously, I am here to talk about the game that just happened as I'm recording this. It's about 9 p.m. on the West Coast. So literally just wrapped up probably about 10-20 minutes ago. And yeah, I just wanted to come on here. I know me and Casino will talk about this on the next podcast, but yeah, just want to get my thoughts on this game just as an Eagles fan. Obviously just got done watching it. Me and Casino, I mean, our picks were trash for all the playoff games, but I think that goes for a lot of people. I think tomorrow on the podcast we'll talk about how really nobody had the Texans. I think we were both dumb for picking the Dolphins over the Chiefs, especially when we found out what the weather would be, because we've seen Miami in those type of weathers countless times, especially Tua. The Green Bay Dallas game obviously was shocking, and I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. I mean, Casino had the Packers winning, but he didn't predict it was going to be a blowout. We thought that would be a close game. Lions Rams was pretty much what everybody thought it would be, a back and forth 1 point game. Same with Buffalo Steelers. Buffalo dominates, blah, blah, blah. So now we get to the game that I wanted to talk about and why I'm recording this right now. Instant, reaction, whatever. And that is the Buccaneers winning against the Philadelphia Eagles 32-9. Now, obviously I was angry during this game as an Eagles fan, but there's a difference between being angry, like angry shocked, and angry for seeing the same things that have basically been happening for a month, right? Everybody knows the story with this team. If you don't, let me give it a quick recap. They started 10-1. This season after the Super Bowl, I believe it was the best start by a team that has ever come off I believe either winning or losing the Super Bowl, just off a Super Bowl season. The best a team has ever done, 10-1. And then obviously they go 1-5 to finish out the regular season and then lose to the Buccaneers in the wild card round of the playoffs. Now, during the season, especially the last couple weeks, they had basically chances to lock up the 1 seed. They blew it. They had chances to lock up the 2 seed. They blew it. They had chances to win their division. They blew it, right? In the past 6 weeks. I mean, if you listen to this podcast or if this is your first time, after the Seattle, let's go back even further. After the Buffalo Bills game, where they won that game in overtime, I think that was probably between that and the Dolphins game was the best 2 games they played all season and looked like remnants of the Super Bowl team, right? But then what happened after that is they played that Seattle Seahawks Monday night game where Buffalo Bills game. After that game, I was 100% in, right? I was like, this team best in the league. Everybody's even when they were 10-1 saying they were frauds, blah, 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 blah. But I was like, no, ride or die with this team. Then the next couple weeks happened, and it was really that Monday night game where it was just like, oh, this team is giving up just across the board, right? It seems the coaches have no idea what they're doing. I mean, we'll get to the coordinators, but most importantly, this team feels like it's giving up on Nick Sirianni. You kind of, instead of hearing motivational things or, players talking about what they could do better, what they couldn't do better, it was just platitudes of things that where it's just like, well, you got to take one game at a time, got to be better. And then you're just like, okay, but you're not addressing any of the issues. And then shockingly enough, that progressed and progressed and progressed until you got to the perfect storm, which was this Buccaneers game. I mean, even earlier than that, the perfect storm was last week against the Giants, where AJ Brown gets hurt. They decide to start the starters for half the game for no reason at all. There was no chance that the Cowboys were losing to that Commanders team when the Commanders basically punted on their season after they traded away everybody. And they had a lame duck coach and everything like that. So there's no way the Cowboys are losing that game in the last week of the regular season. So why do you have any of the starters in? AJ Brown gets hurt and he wouldn't have been a factor in this game. There's no way that AJ Brown being in this game all of a sudden makes this game competitive or anything, because it was all on the protection, which last 3 weeks we've seen them play the Giants twice, and all the Giants did to disrupt this Eagles offense was just blitz them. Not even like a disguise blitz, not even a, something where it's like, who's blitzing? I don't know. Literally showing they're going to blitz and then just blitzing. And then what did we see as viewers in this Eagles Buccaneers team, or this Eagles Buccaneers game? I'm sorry. Literally all the Buccaneers did was just show, oh, we're going to blitz everybody. And then the Eagles had no answer whatsoever. And again, that's now we can start talking about the coordinators, because this team clearly gave up on the coaching, right? Like, it's fairly obvious. I think everybody was kind of over Nick Sirianni's demeanor, swagger, mindset, whatever you want to, just Nick Sirianni. They're over that, right? Everybody you can kind of feel, especially in this game, is over the Jalen Hurts kind of like, oh, I don't like, just like the who gives a shit. We're just playing a football game, like never high, never low. Which I think that has more to do with just having a rough season, right? Because, and that's as a team. I still think Jalen Hurts on the season, he wasn't as good as he was last season, but he was still a top 10 quarterback in this league this season, especially with what he's able to do on the ground, running. He throws one of the most beautiful deep balls in the league. Uh, I really think his ball placement and his ball accuracy are on point. But again, tonight, you can try to pin this game all you want on him. They showed a graphic in this game where he had 2 seconds to throw the ball. I don't care if you're Patrick Mahomes. I don't care if you're Tom Brady. I don't care if you're whatever quarterback you want to put in that, mix. If you have 1 to 2 seconds to throw every single play, and none of your wide receivers or tight ends or running backs are getting into space or getting any separation whatsoever because your play designs are so bad, you're going to have a game like he did tonight, where really the only bad play I thought that he did was the safety, because he took that safety after avoiding 2 defenders. And then when you're avoiding 2 defenders in the end zone, get the ball out of your hands, right? I'm not saying make a Superman throw. I'm not saying, play hero ball and try to complete a pass. Throw the ball away. You're in the end zone. You've avoided 2 defenders. And then that was the turning point of the game. I mean, up until that point, it was a 7-point game. And I thought, Eagles are hanging around in this. So when you have 2 seconds to throw and you're in the end zone and you've already avoided 2 defenders, why are you trying to make a play instead of just throwing the ball out of bounds and living to fight another down? That was the turning point of the game, where now all of a sudden it becomes a 2-possession game immediately. I mean, shockingly, when the Eagles started to be bad, I said the 3 players I never want to see on the field again are James Bradbury, gave up 2 touchdowns in this game. Quez Watkins, who was the number 2 wide receiver in this game and did absolutely nothing, when all week it was him trying to do this like hype thing where it's like, I asked Jalen Hurts, what should I do? And he said, answer the call, blah, 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 or whatever the hell he said. Non-existent. But even when he is in the game and existent, he does stuff like in the biggest games in the Super Bowl where he drops a wide open pass that would have changed that game. So he was non-existent. And then you have Kenneth Gainwell, who was basically the reason for that safety, who tries to gain a yard or instead of gaining a yard on a rush that is just going nowhere, he decides to run backwards at the 5-yard line and lose 6 yards on to try to run from the right or to the right side back to the left, and then gets tackled for a 6-yard loss when he could have had a 1-yard gain. Again, the 3 worst players on this team who literally cost the Eagles games, Quez Watkins, James Bradbury, and Kenneth Gainwell, all did things in this game that would make you, as a fan of the team, be like, why is this person on this team? Why are they in the position they're in where they're go-to options? I mean, for how many weeks have we just heard the Eagles offense doesn't know how to handle the blitz? They don't know how to handle the blitz for weeks now, a month. That's been the narrative. And then guess what? In a playoff game, they don't know how to handle the blitz. We've also heard, the Eagles offensive play calling is really predictable. For a month now, we've been hearing that. And then what happens? It's predictable, and you have people on TV, commentators being like, they do this out of this play. And then that happens. So if you have people, I mean, I've been able to call plays from the couch because of what they're lined up in. So if you have fans who know little to nothing about putting together an offensive scheme, for me, nothing. If you have announcers who watch football every week and they can tell what play you're going to run, what makes you think the defense is not going to know what play you're going to run? And then you have, the just greatest play caller ever, which is Brian Johnson, who has never met a 3rd and long. He doesn't think he can win with a screen pass when you have maybe the worst group in the league of getting any type of separation or space from their defenders. So let's talk about Brian Johnson, and then we'll get to Matt Patricia and Sean Desai. But Brian Johnson, been in the NFL for 3 years and has done what to qualify him to be an offensive coordinator. I'll answer that question for you. He knows Jalen Hurts. That's it. That's the list of accomplishments apparently it takes to be the Eagles offensive coordinator. I mean, at every job I've had, it's always been the worst employee, or the one who does the least amount of work is always the one given the job by someone that you also work with, right? Like, that's why movies suck now. That's why TV has a real wide chasm of really good and really bad, because it's all written and directed and starring people whose parents were famous, whose parents were talented, and then you just have, them just being ushered into the spotlight with nothing to qualify them to be in the spotlight except who they know, right? It's nepotism. So this is nepotism without being related. This is even worse than nepotism, because it's literally like, he's not even my blood. He's just this guy I know. He's just this friend of mine. Hey, can you give him a job? Like, oh yeah, we're a season removed from one play potentially away from winning the Super Bowl. So let's lose both of our coordinators. I mean, Gannon, I give him a lot of guff on the show, but at least he could put together a defensive scheme that put pressure on the opposing quarterback. His back end, safety and corner and linebacker schemes were as bad as the Eagles are now, but at least he had a dominant front 4. At least he had a dominant, I'll even give him front 7. Let's say he had a dominant front 7 and a bad back end, but you can have a bad back end when the opposing quarterback has no time to throw, right? So we'll give him a little credit where credit is due. And then Shane Steichen, who I loved last year, and I thought the offense last year was exciting. It was dynamic. It was fresh. It was the reason why that team went to the Super Bowl and had a amazing offense. The offense this year was Brian Johnson, again, friend of a guy is why he was qualified for the job, who does the same 4 plays over and over again. I mean, tonight they were calling offensive plays where wide receivers, tight ends, running backs were in motion. And it was like shocking. I was like, oh my God, there's people moving pre snap. What is this? And then as the game progressed, it got back to the screenplay or got back to the screen passes to the out routes when it's 3rd and 15 to pick up 2, right? When it's 3rd and 8, let's go 5 away from the first down marker. So it's all just short intermediate passing routes that are well short and designed away from the first down marker, which is great play design. And again, this has been going on all season, but this Eagles roster was so stacked that they were overcoming bad coaching. Okay. And then Sean Desai, bad defensive coordinator. Everybody's trying to give him his flowers as if what he was doing before was great. No, he was a bottom half of the league defensive coordinator. And then all of a sudden, Matt Patricia comes in. He finds a diamond in the rough with kind of 2 rookie cornerbacks having great games when they're out there. And instead of going with that and making some tough decisions on personnel and actually changing the defense, instead he just goes, what ain't broke, we ain't going to try to fix. So instead of doing man or cover 2 or blitzes or anything like that, let's just sit in zone all day with our linebackers who can't cover and our cornerback 2 named James Bradbury, who I text this to my friend Casino. Maybe you've heard of him. He's the co-host on this podcast. I text him to this at the start of the game. I said, watch for any bad defensive plays or big moments to happen against James Bradbury. Right off the bat, first 2 touchdowns of the game. I mean, we'll talk about that when me and Casino talk about it. We'll talk about that egregious holding call that gave the Bucs the first touchdown, but whatever. It's not like that would have helped them, or the Eagles, that is. But first touchdown of the game, James Bradbury. Second touchdown of the game after the safety, James Bradbury. Interesting. It's almost like he's a liability and shouldn't be out there and is probably the 5th or 6th best corner on your team that actually surprisingly has pretty good corners, given that 2 of them are rookies and playing lights out when they were asked to play. So then you come into this game, Sidney Brown's out for the season. Reed Blankenship's out for the game. AJ Brown's out for the game. So you have 2 big secondary pieces. You have your biggest offensive weapon out of the game. So instead of trying to, I don't know, get other people involved, let's see if our passing game has an issue. Why don't we try, as the 5th best rushing team in the league, to run the ball? No, of course not. Start of the 3rd quarter, it's 21 passes to 5 rushes or something like that. No balance whatsoever. No attempt to establish a running game. You gash this same team with also on Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago for 200 yards, right? Let's not even try that. I mean, why would we? Right. And then for the defense, it's our linebackers are a liability in coverage, and so is James Bradbury. So let's put them on every offensive possession by the Buccaneers to show that they're a liability. So that's why you see completions over the middle. That's why you see every touchdown happen against James Bradbury. It's just like, I, as a stupid fan, and that's just what I am, right? I know nothing about football except what I watch and have picked up through my fandom. Okay. It's not like I study the game or grind the all 22 or any of that, right? I just watch the games and have a medium sized brain. Let's just give it that. Okay. I'm not even trying to act smart or say anything like this, but I'm an idiot, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm an idiot and I know where our weak points are. So then you have smart football people planning against your team. So if the idiot on the podcast who knows nothing knows your weaknesses, why do you think they're not going to be exploited? Okay. And they were for a month, for a week, for a month and a half for this game. And then it comes down to the narrative wrapped around this was like, oh man, what an epic collapse by the Eagles. They were 10-1 and then they went 1-5 and lost their first playoff game, blah, blah, blah. Every analyst or sports talking media personality, blah, blah, picked the Buccaneers to win. The Eagles have been labeled a fraud for 2 months. They were labeled frauds when they were 10-1. Like this is not similar to the Cowboy situation at all because nobody going into these playoffs legitimately thought the Eagles were going to be a Super Bowl team or a contender to go to the Super Bowl. Everybody thought the Bucs would win, or like I did, I thought the Eagles would squeak by this game and then get annihilated by whoever they played next round, right? Not in my wildest dreams did I think this Eagles team, with what I've seen this season, would go to the Super Bowl. And that's coming from an Eagles fan. People who were not Eagles fans have been calling this Eagles team fraud since week 2. So to act like now this narrative is this was a 10-1 team and they had this epic collapse and they were supposed to go back to the Super Bowl. It's like literally no one has ever said that. And they lost this game exactly how they've lost every other game for the past month. The team looks like they don't care anymore. The coaching is bad. Now let's talk about Matt Patricia. Sean Desai has a 25th ranked defense going into the easy stretch of the schedule against the Giants, Seahawks, Cardinals, and then Giants again. So the team makes the switch, which I was in favor of because, again, I was tired of seeing the defense. Again, I wish they would have also made a switch on the offensive side. But again, Brian Johnson, he's been in the NFL for 2 whole years and he knows Jalen Hurts. So we have to give him, a prestigious job within the organization, right? He can't just be the quarterback's coach or the trainer or the water boy. He has to be calling the offensive plays because, we need 6 offensive plays to choose from every game, whether it be a quarterback draw or a wide receiver screen or 4 verticals or what have you. So then we get Matt Patricia in, who first game in, I actually thought he did a pretty good job. I was like, I like this defense. He's got the rookie corners in, Eli Ricks, and I can't remember the other name, but both great right after the game. And then I came on this podcast and I was like, hey, defense actually looked pretty good, even though they lost the game. And then all of a sudden it just fell apart. We're putting Hassan Reddick in, let's not have our best pass rusher actually be a pass rusher, and let's just put him in zone coverage where he's getting exposed. Let's take Shaquille Leonard from the Colts, who's already washed, and have him running against 21-year-old running backs in open space, right, to try to cover them. Like, just dumb. And every time you watch an Eagles game, you can read comments about it. You can see it on screen. You can hear the announcer say it. Again, it's obvious to everyone. Everyone on defense always looks out of position. Not on a play here or there. Every single play, it looks like they're out of position. Luckily, there's good players on this team on offense or defense. So again, they can sometimes overcome bad coaching. And that's what happened. You give this team a little momentum and they can go on a run like when they were 10-1. But when the house of cards falls, everyone looks like the Joker, right? In terms of cards, because everyone starts playing like they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. Again, that comes to coaching. So do I want Nick Sirianni gone? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, we got rid of Doug Peterson and he won a Super Bowl. And a Doug Peterson coach team never looked as bad as this Nick Sirianni coach team. And then you think he probably lost the locker room. I would bet to dollars to donuts he did. But when it comes to Nick Sirianni, you can make the case for me to keep him or get rid of him. I'm torn. For offensive and defensive coordinators, fire everyone on both sides of the ball, and get new coaching staffs over everybody. And that's why I would say I'd probably be more leaning towards get rid of Nick Sirianni, bring in a Mike Vrabel, bring in a Bill Belichick, have them bring in new defensive and offensive coordinators, and then we'll go from there. Because this team is too talented and has too much talent on it. In again, what was a season that appears to be pretty wide open, especially from what we've seen from the Texans or the Packers, or what the Browns did at the end of the season, what the Steelers were doing at the end of the season. It felt like this year and probably next year, maybe the next two, who knows? It feels like the NFL's open, right? Like the NFL playoffs are wide open. All you have to do is get to the playoffs and then just go from there, right? So this went longer than I thought it would, but I just had to do an Eagles rant. I'm not again, there's been games where I've been mad that we lost. This one from the get-go, I was like, we're losing this game because of this, all the reasons I just said. I'm not mad because I didn't think this team would go anywhere, right? I thought farthest I thought they could go was barely squeak out this game and then lose horribly next week. That was the end cap. I never saw a scenario where they were going to the NFC Championship, let alone the Super Bowl. So this narrative that like, oh, this is a worse loss than Dallas. It's like the Dallas loss. It's like how there were legitimate football analysts picking Dallas to go to the Super Bowl. Nobody was picking this Eagles team to go anywhere. What are we like now? But now we're trying to be like, they was such a bad loss. This was the favorite. And then it was like, I've seen what Cowherd did his top 10 playoff teams. The Eagles weren't even on it. Like it's just, uh, again, I get more upset about the narrative and the rewriting history after something like this than what the game actually happened. Because I'm pretty sure you can go back and listen to our last podcast. I was like, I think the Eagles will win, but I wouldn't be shocked if they lost, and I'm not shocked. I mean, at halftime, I was like, oh, maybe they could do this. They're only down by a touchdown. They get the ball back, and then the safety happens. And before even the touchdown, after the safety happened, once the safety happened, I just threw my hands up and I was like, that's it. It's done. There's no way they're coming back for this. Then they're down by 16. They kick a field goal, and then there's a penalty, and then it's 4th and 5, and they do one of the worst 4th and 5 attempts you're ever going to see. Does not happen. And then it's just like, oh, Bucks get the ball, and now it's 16, and now they go right down the field. And then it's just like, okay, well, yeah. I haven't seen a lot of bad Jalen Hurts games that I would literally put the blame on him. And this is not one of them, but this game was not on him. Again, I think the protection and picking up the blitz and whatever the hell was happening on defense were the issues. Hurts, the only play in this game that I put solely on his shoulders is the that safety. I mean, he held onto that ball so long in dangerous territory. It was shocking. Shocking that a quarterback at any level would think that's a good idea to not just throw it away when you've already avoided 2 defenders. But yeah, I'm just the silver lining is thank God I don't have to watch this team again this year. Hopefully next year they get in a Vrabel or a Belichick, or they keep Sirianni and just get different offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators. As long as they can keep the core together of Hurts, this offensive line. Kelsey's going to probably retire, which is going to be a huge loss. But the other guys on the offensive line, you got weapons. On the defense, again, I like the young cornerbacks. I like what I've seen from Sidney Brown. I would like Reed Blankenship to be in select plays. I don't think you should ever put him as in coverage. I think he's a great tackling safety. So if you want to bring him up in the box as a sub linebacker or something like that, I don't know. But again, I like the pieces on this Eagles team. I think with the right coaching, you get a season like last year where this is a team capable of going to the Super Bowl. Now, capable of winning it is another story, but I think with the right coaches calling the plays, I mean, how many times did we hear it this season where it was like announcers, the Manning cast, people online, the sports media just shocked by how egregious the play calling on both sides of the ball were. Like there were football pros offended by how bad the offensive play calling and defensive play calling were, right? Like literally offended, not just like this bad defense, this bad offense, offended that there are people calling these plays, which I think is the biggest red flag about what happened this season. So I would not be shocked if tomorrow morning, obviously I'm recording this Monday night right after the game, but tomorrow morning on Tuesday, I would not be shocked if Casino and I are doing the next episode of Only Sports Podcast and we're not talking about this Eagle staff being fired, wiped out, whatever. But yeah, this was just Will from the Only Sports Podcast opinions on his Eagles losing to the Tampa Bay and just what a weird season it was. What a weird season. It's highest of highs, lowest of lows. I wouldn't say highest of highs, probably medium highs, very, very dark lows. But this, honestly, this isn't even the darkest low of the season. And I know this season just ended, but that losing to the Cardinals was probably my rock bottom of the season. So everything after that's kind of just been almost an improvement.